Let's go to this. Hey, welcome to Estate Planning Weekly. I'm Bill Gross, your host at Bill Gross Probate on social media. And when I founded this, it's funny, I never really thought about it, that people might think of the title estate planning as just being about the estate plan itself. But when I think of estate planning as a verb, as an activity, I think of all the related businesses that go into it to make us effective. I'm a real estate agent. I do estate plans, and I add on to my business by bringing estate planning attorneys in. Today, I'm really excited to have with us a co-founder of PALS, Professional Afterlife, Afterlife Services, which really takes this whole thing to the next level, which is to look for all the different touchpoint services that are needed by families after losses, and to hopefully connect them to professionals like realtors, like attorneys, like estate planners, to make the process, the customer's experience better. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit. How'd you get in the space?
Well, I got into this just due to personal experience. I mean, I don't have any kind of professional background in estate planning or helping people with estate administration. But what happened is I lost my husband in 2015. He died of cancer at the age of 33. And so I was left really holding the bag. You know, I'd never been an executor before. Most people haven't who are in this position, but I was shocked to find out just how much work there was that falls to a surviving spouse or adult child when someone dies. It absolutely blows my mind to this day that we're expecting grieving people to be able to have the executive functioning skills to make all kinds of decisions and focus on very detailed forms and process a ton of information that's thrown at them because they're not experts in this space.
Even if they're not grieving, I had an occasion where I had a family member who was, important, but not, I wasn't grieving. She was old enough to where I didn't really, in a relationship, I wasn't grieving over. But the amount of work involved to be the administrator was, I have a full-time business. I'm already busy every day. You add that onto it. And if you don't look at it like a business where you both have to allocate your time and then find good vendors to help you, it becomes overwhelming. So let's talk about either the ones that you did find that helped you or ones that you should have found while you were in the midst yourself that you not added. What are some of the pieces of the puzzle that can help families in the midst of this? They can delegate some of the work to or turn to for professional advice. Besides the obviously attorney and the estate plan, what are the other pieces of the puzzle that you think are important for them to notice about?
Yeah, I think the attorney obviously is important. There's a lot of legal considerations in probate and estates. I mean, it's really, it's incredibly complicated and you don't want to wing it. Right. You don't want to mess this up. So it's really important to have someone that you trust on your side. And then there's the financial aspects of it too, especially if you're dealing with, a life insurance windfall or something like that. You're going from 2 incomes to 1 income, or there's some other kind of financial change in your world. It's really helpful to have a financial advisor or planner also on your team. So those are the 2 main professionals. But we also have CPAs, accountants helping with the tax portion of estate planning and administration. And then I kind of created my own little niche in this space because I felt like there was a huge gap in somebody who really takes a broad look at everything that falls to families, who's kind of taking that bird's eye view and looking at everything that they're dealing with, right? Because every individual is different. Every estate is going to be different. And so I came up with this space. I thought I was the very first person to come up with this, who comes alongside the human to see their situation comprehensively and says, look, we're going to take a look at everything. We're not going to discriminate, and we're going to connect you with the right experts where you need those experts and help you prioritize. So you're going through this in a way that makes sense and doesn't set off chain reactions that you didn't even know could happen by closing something too early, for example.
And that's taking a professional approach to it rather than an amateur's approach, right? Like I said, the estate that I took over, I work with probate real estate. I deal with real estate all the time, but I had never worked with a fuller state. And all of a sudden it's in my hands. And, something as simple as, I'll give you one example. The family member who passed, whose estate I was administering, had a huge amount of family photographs, just an enormous amount in books, not in books, really neat, older stuff, things that I was fascinated to see, that I know my brother and sister were. And yet, because I wasn't professional, I didn't really have a plan, I said, well, I'll get to it. And then now I'm stuck with this thing. We close out the estate, and it might sound petty, but rather than splitting it by the estate, and we had 4 heirs, now do I just pay for the whole thing myself? I can't go back and collect money from them because I didn't do it professionally as part of the plan. And meanwhile, the answer to the question is just sitting in this huge box that I walk by, a couple times a week saying, what am I going to do with this, number one? Number two, we all know there's different services available, but it's one thing to send your family photos to somebody you've never worked with just because they advertise on the internet, and have a professional, if somebody had, like your service, recommended, well, these people are actually really good, you can trust them, I would have been more comfortable to right away send it. But because I had a to-do list that was 2 miles long, one of them was to research for one time in my life, the photo scanning company, and I just never got to it. Yeah. And I think that's where professionals come involved, both to make a plan ahead of time, and then they bring with them a Rolodex of trusted professionals that can help maybe shorten the time period for making decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think that's a great example, where there just ends up being a lot of stuff that no one's accounted for.
Right.
And it falls to the family member to make these decisions because the person didn't deal with it or didn't leave clear instructions for after they pass away. So, I just could not feel more strongly about the importance of thinking about the actual experience of the person that's left, to sort through all of this stuff. Because I come along my clients and I, of course, bring my own personal experience with this as well. But, we can't even get started sometimes because the person who's died has never had a conversation with their family about what their wishes are or where anything's located. Right. And so, there's this real deep resistance that we have a lot of times to talking to people we love about our death, right? It's very uncomfortable. And so what ends up happening is they just never do it. They keep postponing and postponing and postponing. And then they just never talk to them, and their family is left with like the worst scavenger hunt ever to try to find all of these little pieces of information, even if they've done all of the like legal planning and they have a financial advisor. If that family doesn't know who those people are, you might as well be flying blind. It's so hard.
Yeah. I think, like you say, it's a scavenger hunt to find stuff, and then personal stuff, and then to do it while your parents are alive is difficult because they're attached to it emotionally, so they don't really want to deal with it, even though they probably should. I keep thinking to myself, I'm going to organize. And I'm a pretty organized person, but even still, I have a lot of stuff I don't need all the time. You have to go through and thin out what you don't want. Mm-hmm. If I had somebody professional to help with that, well, it's one thing to say, I'm going to find somebody. But again, if you have a network of people that you can trust, now you're bringing in a trusted advisor who specializes in this field. Maybe you go through a short introduction period and decide to work with them or not. And it's a different experience. So talk a little bit about, you created Palace as a network of kind of trusted professionals. I think of each of them, there's probably competitors in their field, but these are people that you've worked with and other people in your network have worked with and theoretically vetted and or had good relations with. Talk about the power of the network that you've already kind of put together for people.
Yeah, so I mentioned when I first got started in this field, I thought I had completely invented it. I couldn't find anybody else who was doing this work. I was very much inspired by my wedding coordinator. I really loved how great she was at like knowing all the right people and making all the phone calls and things like that. So I wanted to do that for people after a death. And so when I found some other women in other states who were doing the same thing that I was, it was such a huge relief. I can't tell you what a huge difference it makes to find other people who care about the same things that you do, but then also to be able to share best practices and resources and lessons learned. And so that's really the heart behind starting professionals of after loss services, or PALS, which is that community aspect of it. And we really have had such a special experience with really raising each other up and wanting each other to succeed, because we know that there are way more families that need help than we have after loss professionals to be able to help them. So
way more.
The need far surpasses the number of people who know how to do this work. And so we really don't see each other as competition. We see each other as like all working towards that same goal of helping as many families as possible. And so the power of that network is that, you know, we are able to say, hey, I have a client in Nevada and I need an estate planning attorney, or
Right.
I need, you know, a realtor in Massachusetts, or, you know, like, help me out. Like, have you worked with anybody there? What do you know about this market or whatever? And so they're able to say, like, these are some good people that I know about, and this person has been prosecuted for fraud. So, you know, like just things like that really helps us deliver the best service to our clients.
I think also sometimes that when you're searching for a service, you know, where do you go? Well, I think one place a lot of us start is searching Google.
Sure.
And oftentimes the companies promoting the hardest and most are promoting the hardest and most because they have to, because they're not really giving good service, right?
That's right.
And I have a podcast on real estate, and one of the biggest advertisers of real estate services are Zillow and Redfin. Why? Because they really don't give good service, but they have to advertise to keep new business. They're now being bought by Rocket Mortgage, terrible mortgage company, but they have to advertise in order to generate business. And so when you go online, you know, the sponsored ones are paying to be there, and you know, are they really good? And the websites might look great, and they have great videos, but there's a big difference between that and somebody saying, hey, you're my client, I'm a realtor, I'm putting my relationship capital on the line to tell you that this vendor is really good. I've worked with them before, or I haven't, but I met them, I know them, and I'm related, and at least disclosing the relationship versus working with strangers is so difficult in these areas, and there's so many different touch points that a family's going to have during this process.
Yeah, it's really wild. I mean, the experience of Googling something is completely different these days.
Yes.
Like you said, so many ads, but then AI is trying to generate the best answer for you, and they're pulling from, you know, who knows what sources. And so it really, it's kind of interesting to see that landscape shake out, especially because I have, you know, this digital marketing background. I used to work in the SEO field trying to help my clients get seen in search engines. And it's just unrecognizable. It is so difficult to find good, true information out there.
It's almost impossible, and you don't hear the information about troublemakers. Like I saw an advertisement last week. I mean, a news story last week, very obscure. Wells Fargo penalty, $890 million penalty for cheating children who were trustees of a trust for Seminole Indians in Florida. So you have this Indian tribe, and they're entitled to whatever it is. I imagine they have billions of dollars being, you know, managed for them, and they get income as a result of that. And by the nature of the typically indigent in general, the average income of Native American Indians in America is way below average. And here's Wells Fargo. I mean, how much money? How bad are you? You get fined $890 million. I've gotten a parking ticket for $300, and yet you might say, "Oh, they have a great trust department." Yeah, look what they've done to the trust department. Like, who would know that? And by the way, I searched the news. It wasn't carried by anybody but this one Florida Seminole County newspaper that had the article. Why? Because Wells Fargo advertises in all the news. And so you're not going to find out by searching necessarily the right answers. We need to really have professionals that we can trust that bring with them a Rolodex or bring with them those relationships. To me, I feel like that's my real value to my customers is I don't do anything, but I know people who do everything. What's your problem? Let me help you solve it. That's kind of the attitude has to be.
Yeah, that's a huge value add. I feel like more than ever, that is a huge value add, especially because a lot of times we're living far away from our family.
Right.
We're not in the community. And so we really rely on other people's recommendations to make these decisions. And so a lot of what after loss professionals do is They are boots on the ground. They're learning things. They're doing all this research to alleviate the burden on families so they don't have to feel like they have to do all of that themselves.
So the afterlosspros.com website is a collection of professionals who service this area. You have on here partners, and I recognize some of these names, and so I know Artifacts. I've talked to them. I've talked to Trust Estate, a service for trust. Trustworthy is another kind of operating system. So I know some of these people with background. Now, tell me, but you have more partners in this, or you have more members in this. Not all members are partners. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so partners are businesses. They're basically affiliates. And so members are typically individuals who are aspiring or practicing after loss professionals. And so our partners are not competing with us. They're offering complementary services or products that help either us as after loss professionals or our clients. So there's lots of people in this space. There's lots of tools and a lot of professionals. And so our PALS partners are really those like vetted companies that we believe in and stand beside. So those are really strategic partnerships there. So the Find a Pro directory is how you would find people who are actually offering after loss services, hopefully in your area.
Got it. So you're getting an after-loss professional who's going to bring the Rolodex of the partnerships and their own Rolodex to this. It's not about finding the individual vendors, but you're actually hiring somebody, retaining somebody to be kind of your quarterback on the process.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And then these people, they're members, so they're paying money as well as networking and involved with the services, and you're vetting and things like that. And then you also mentioned, I know you have upcoming a event where you get together, I think, once a year and network, as well as there's education and sharing of more services. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we're so excited about the After Loss Summit. So this is the only conference for after loss professionals. A lot of what we do is online because we're all in different places. And so this is our opportunity to get together and really build those strong connections and learn from each other. We have a great interactive, experiential schedule that we're working on. And so that is something that we're going to be doing in the Atlanta, Georgia area. This is our second year in that space. We'll actually be in downtown Decatur, which is lovely. And I can't wait to see everyone there and really get to know everybody who really cares about this experience for families after a loss.
And so, again, this would be a great segue for somebody who's in the after loss space, looking to up their game, both in terms of exposure to vendors, exposure to best practices, networking, connecting to people in other locations and things like that.
Yeah, we're going to take a deep dive into actually what it takes to offer this service and really help people understand all of the work and the best practices that go into building a really strong business, because it is really important to us as professionals to support each other and help each other succeed in this line of work. So it's really going to be a little bit different than a typical conference, a much more intimate workshop-like experience with lots of small group activities and things like that. So we're really pumped.
So I've only done one wedding. We interviewed one wedding planner that we didn't like and one that we loved, and she did a great job, and she brought great value to the experience because she knew things and she was able to give us proper judgment. So is a professional after loss similar to a wedding planner in that they're kind of the quarterback and then you kind of delegate those things, but you have your input along the way? Is that kind of the experience?
That is exactly how I modeled my personal services. So when I started my business, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that guide and help quarterback a lot of the things that needed to happen and coordinate a lot of the disparate professionals who were not talking to each other, right? And so to bring it back to this estate planning space, a great example of that is the estate attorney and the financial professional not talking to each other. And so an after loss professional can sometimes really advocate for communication between all those parties and bring it all together into one space. So that will be kind of the guidebook and the plan for the family, so they don't have to do that scavenger hunt. So you have it all together for them, all of your wishes in one place.
Fascinating. So, and then let's talk about a professional after loss professional. I said it twice. But
After loss professional,
after loss professional. What types of things do they do to promote their business? I imagine networking with related professionals. And then is that something that the PALS program offers them that chance to do that? Is that kind of the approach, or is it more about they're learning it and getting educated, but the business generation really is something they do individually on their own?
Business generation is really something they have to do on their own. So a lot of it happens in their local markets. And so it's really important for them to go out and do things like meet with the estate attorneys in their area, maybe sit on the estate planning council in their area, and show up in these spaces where there are people who are already working with families who have lost a loved one and can make those recommendations. It's really a referral-based business. And so that's why it's so important for after loss professionals to also know those right referrals. So they're looking for their clients, and they're also looking for leads to come to them from their referral network.
I'm sure there's a range of plans, but typically is it an hourly fee? Is it a retainer fee plus, I guess, an hourly, or is there a flat fee? Or what's the most common way that this is offered to families?
Yeah, I mean, pricing is really difficult. It's really hard to talk about the best way to price your services all across the country. And so we really leave it up to individual members to decide what works best for them. But typically we recommend starting with an hourly rate. Just for transparency's purposes, we really want our clients to not feel like they're being taken advantage of with surprise bills and things like that. So tracking time and accounting for how they're spending their time on the engagement is really one of the best ways. But then for example, I use package servicing. I charge an monthly rate up front. And so that is important to me, so people know how much it's going to cost, and they can make a decision about whether or not they want to work with me or can afford to work with me. There's so many different charges that they're faced with. And so that is something that is really important for my clients to know, and for me to be completely transparent about. And then they also can typically get reimbursed for my services from the estate. It's an administrative cost.
In particular, I can see why attorneys would want to use a professional in that they're probably, especially in a case where either they have to do the work or there's a fiduciary, there's an hourly rate for those people. I imagine the hourly rate for after loss professional might be less, or same rate, but less time to get certain things done because they have relationships. And so you're billing for time, but you're also delegating some of the work to somebody else, and perhaps even at a lower rate or faster execution time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of attorneys who have clients that they sometimes say need some hand-holding. They need a little extra help to be able to get things done. Yeah. Attorneys usually have a lot of homework for their clients. You need to be doing this work and come back to me with this inventory or whatever it is. And if their client is not able to do that, it really slows everything down. And so an after-loss professional can come alongside the client and hold their hand and help them get these things done so their case can move forward.
Well, obviously, there's a lot to the after loss world in terms of the different areas that you can be involved with. We've talked about a few of them, and you're obviously an expert on this and can go really deep. And I do appreciate getting time with you. For somebody who wanted to reach out to you specifically about either your service or the PALS program in general, best way would be on the website, afterlosspros.com.
Sure, that works. Or you can always reach out to me at jasmine@afterlosspros.com.
Great. Jasmine at afterlosspros. I'm going to add that to because I'm the production. Watch this. I'm going to tell my producer, hey, producer, can you please put her email and add that to the banner? And boom, there it is. Jasmine at afterlosspros.com.
You're a one-stop shop.
I have a whole production team. It's on me. So anyhow, Jasmine, always a pleasure to talk to you. And I really appreciate the service you have and want to learn more about going forward, and also want to promote people. Having been through this myself, I wish I knew of a company like this where I could have said, look, I'm going to handle the I'm going to make the decisions on the legal and the financial, but I need to delegate the actual administrative work to somebody else who can do this. And frankly, at my hourly rate or less, it makes sense to delegate to somebody else. I really appreciate bringing this to our attention and the time we spent today, and look forward to working with you going forward.
Thank you so much, Bill. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And then for the rest of you, again, this was the estate planning podcast. We do this once a week where I interview professionals in the space, attorneys in many cases, or vendors to help us be more effective on helping our customers with our estate plan, both before and executing the plan afterwards. I'm Bill Gross at Bill Gross Probate, but you go to our Facebook group, the Estate Planning Podcast. If you have questions, referrals, looking for professionals, looking for attorneys in other states, or you have questions you want to answer and continue the conversation. If I can help you, please reach out. I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media. My contact information down below. As always, make today your best day ever.